The sun hung low over the Wyoming horizon, painting the sky in streaks of orange and pink, as if it knew the storm brewing beneath. It wasn't just weather. I leaned against the weathered fence of my ranch, the one my grandfather built with his bare hands, the one I'd poured my life into preserving. Sagebrush Ranch wasn't just land, it was my blood, my sweat, my everything. 200 acres of rolling hills, stubborn cattle, and memories that clung to every blade of grass. But that evening, as I sipped black coffee from a chipped mug, a letter in my hand threatened to burn it all down. The letter was from the Karen Hills Homeowners Association HOA. They called themselves, though I'd never heard of them until that crisp autumn day. It was typed in that cold, officious font that screamed trouble, demanding I pay $250,000 in back dues for my own damn ranch. My ranch. The one I'd owned free and clear since Grandpa passed it down. The one I'd fought to keep when banks came sniffing, when drought cracked the earth, when life tried to break me. And now, some faceless group was claiming I owed them $250,000 for community fees on land they said was under their jurisdiction. I laughed, a bitter sound that startled a nearby crow. Then I read the fine print. They'd built their office on my property. My property. Without a word to me. I crumpled the letter and stormed to my truck, the dust kicking up like a warning. Karen Hills wasn't even a name I recognized. No such place existed on any map I'd ever seen. But the address they listed was a half-hour drive, right on the edge of my land where the old creek dried up years ago. I didn't know what I'd find, but I wasn't about to let some paper-pushing vultures steal what was mine. The drive felt like wading through molasses, my mind racing faster than the engine. I'd heard of HOAs before, suburban tyrants obsessed with lawn heights and mailbox colors, but out here, in the middle of nowhere, where neighbors were miles apart, and community meant helping a guy fix his fence after a storm, it didn't add up. My closest neighbor, Old Man Tucker, lived 10 miles east and hadn't mentioned any HOA, neither had the feed store clerk or the bartender at Rusty's Saloon, where gossip spread faster than wildfire. Something was wrong. Deeply, gut-twistingly wrong. When I reached the spot, my jaw dropped. There, on a patch of my land where the creek used to run, stood a shiny new building. Glass windows, manicured shrubs, a sign out front reading Karen Hills HOA office in gold letters. It looked like it had been airlifted from some gated community and plopped onto my dirt. A parking lot held 3 cars, one a sleek BMW that screamed city money. I parked my beat-up Chevy next to it, half tempted to key the thing just for existing. Inside, the office smelled like new carpet and arrogance. A woman sat at a polished desk, her hair a perfect blonde helmet, her smile as fake as the plants in the corner. "Welcome to Karen Hills," she chirped, like I was here to buy a condo. "I'm Cynthia, HOA president. How can I assist you?" I slapped the letter on her desk. "You can assist by explaining why you built this eyesore on my land and why you think I owe you $250,000. Her smile didn't waver, but her eyes turned sharp. "Mr. Callahan, I presume? Your property falls within Karen Hills boundaries. As a member, you're responsible for dues, maintenance fees, and penalties for noncompliance. We've been sending notices for months." "Notices?" I barked. "This is the first I've heard of you. And this land's been mine for decades. You can't just waltz in and claim it." Cynthia leaned back, folding her manicured hands. "The county rezoned this area last year. Karen Hills is a new development, and your ranch is part of our community now. Our office is legally permitted, and your failure to pay dues has accrued significant debt." I felt my blood boil. "Rezoned? Without telling me? And you built this without my consent? Lady, you're on my land. I could have you arrested for trespassing." She didn't flinch. "I suggest you consult our bylaws, Mr. Callahan. They're quite clear. And if you refuse to comply, we can place a lien on your property." I wanted to flip her desk, but I held it together. "Barely. Show me these bylaws. And the permits. Now." Cynthia slid a thick binder across the desk, her smile now a smirk. I flipped through pages of legalese, my head spinning. The documents claimed my ranch was part of a planned community, approved by the county. There were maps, signatures, dates none of which I'd ever seen. My hands shook as I read. How could this happen? How could they redraw lines and build on my land without a single word to me? That's when the door opened, and in walked a man I hadn't seen in years. Tommy Grayson, my old high school buddy, the one who'd left for the city and never looked back. He was dressed in a suit that probably cost more than my truck, his grin as slick as the BMW outside. "Jake Callahan," he said, clapping a hand on my shoulder. "Been a while." I shook him off. "Tommy, what the hell are you doing here?" "I'm the developer for Karen Hills," he said, like it was the most natural thing in the world. "Heard you were causing a stir. Let's talk this out, old friend." Old friend. The word stung. Tommy and I had been thick as thieves, growing up, riding horses, sneaking beers, dreaming of owning this land together. But he'd changed after college, chasing money while I stayed rooted. Now he was here, standing in an office built on my dirt, acting like we were still buddies. "Talk," I spat. "You built this on my land, Tommy. You think a handshake fixes that?" His grin faltered, but only for a second. "It's not personal, Jake. It's business. The county wanted development, and I delivered. Your ranch is prime real estate. You could make a fortune if you play ball." "Play ball?" I stepped closer, my voice low. "This is my home, my family's legacy, and you think I'll sell it to you and your HOA cronies?" Cynthia cleared her throat. "Mr. Callahan, if you don't pay the dues, we'll be forced to escalate. Foreclosure is an option." I laughed, a hollow sound. "Foreclose on my own land? You're out of your minds." Tommy put a hand on my arm, and I jerked away. "Jake, listen. Karen Hills is the future. Gated communities, luxury homes, people pay big for this. You could keep a chunk of your land, live comfortably. Why fight it?" I looked at him, really looked, and saw a stranger. The Tommy I knew would have fought tooth and nail for this place. Now he was just another suit, selling out my home for a profit. I turned to Cynthia. "I'm not paying a dime, and I'm getting a lawyer." Her smile returned, colder than ever. "That's your choice, Mr. Callahan. But I warn you, our legal team is very thorough." I stormed out, my heart pounding. The sun had set, leaving the world in shadows. As I drove back to the ranch, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was losing something bigger than land, something I couldn't name. Back home, I dug through Grandpa's old files, hoping to find something to fight with. Deeds, surveys, anything. That's when I found it. A letter from the county, dated a year ago, mentioning a proposed rezoning for community development. It was addressed to me, but I'd never seen it. Someone had intercepted it. Or worse, someone had made sure I wouldn't. I called Tucker the next morning. He answered in his usual gruff drawl. "HOA? Never heard of him. But I did see some fancy types sniffing around your creek last year. Thought they were surveyors. Why didn't you tell me?" I asked, gripping the phone. "Didn't think much of it. You know how city folk are always poking where they don't belong." I hung up, my mind racing. If Tommy was behind this, he'd planned it long before that letter hit my mailbox. But how deep did this go? I needed answers, and I wasn't going to find them in a dusty file cabinet. I drove to the county clerk's office, a squat building in town that smelled of coffee and bureaucracy. The clerk, a wiry woman named Mabel who'd known me since I was a kid, frowned when I asked about the rezoning. "Jake, I don't know much, but that deal was pushed through fast. Some big-shot developer greased the wheels. Said it was for economic growth." "Tommy Grayson?" I asked. She nodded. "Him and some others. They had lawyers, permits, the works. I tried to call you when it happened, but your number was disconnected." My stomach dropped. I'd switched phones last year after a storm fried my old one. Had Tommy known? Had he counted on me being out of the loop? Mabel handed me a stack of documents. "These are public record. Might help." I spent hours poring over them at Rusty's saloon, a beer growing warm beside me. The papers confirmed what Cynthia said. My land was part of Karen Hills, rezoned without my consent. But there was something else, a name buried in the fine print. Evelyn Harper, county commissioner. I knew her. She'd been Grandpa's friend, always at our barbecues, laughing over pie. Why would she sign off on this? I tracked Evelyn down at her farm, a modest place not far from mine. She was in her garden, pruning roses, her hands weathered but steady. When she saw me, her face fell. "Jake," she said softly, "I figured you'd come." "Why'd you do it, Evelyn?" I asked, holding up the documents. "You knew this was my land." She sighed, setting down her shears. "It wasn't supposed to be like this. Tommy came to me with promises, jobs, schools, a better future for the county. Said you'd agreed to sell. I didn't know they'd move so fast, or that they'd build without telling you." "Sell?" I nearly shouted. "I never agreed to anything." Her eyes widened. "He showed me a contract, Jake. Your signature was on it." My blood ran cold. A forged signature. Tommy hadn't just betrayed May, had played me for a fool. I thanked Evelyn and left, my mind a whirlwind. I needed a lawyer, but more than that, I needed to know how far Tommy's lies went. Back at the ranch, I found a stranger waiting on my porch. A woman, mid-30s, with a nervous smile and a backpack slung over one shoulder. "Mr. Callahan? I'm Lila Monroe. I'm a journalist. I think you're in trouble." I raised an eyebrow. "You don't say." She pulled out a notebook. "I've been investigating Karen Hills for months. They're not just an HOA theory of front for a bigger operation. Land grabs, forged documents, bribed officials. Your ranch isn't the first they've targeted." I stared at her, the weight of her words sinking in. Lila was the twist I hadn't seen coming, a spark of hope in a fight that felt hopeless. But as I invited her inside to hear more, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning and that the truth would cost me more than I was ready to pay. Lila Monroe sat at my kitchen table, her notebook open, her eyes sharp with purpose. The coffee I'd poured her steamed untouched as she laid out what she knew. "Karen Hills isn't just a rogue HOA, she said, her voice low, like she was afraid the walls might listen. "It's a shell for a real estate syndicate. They target rural land, push through shady rezonings, and strong-arm owners into selling cheaper, losing everything. Your ranch is their latest prize." I leaned back in my chair, the wood creaking under me. "And Tommy Grayson's running the show?" "Not alone," Lila said, flipping to a page scrawled with names. "He's the frontman, but there's money behind him, big money. Investors from Denver, maybe further. They've done this in 3 other counties. Same playbook, forge documents, bribe officials, build before anyone notices. By the time owners fight back, they're drowning in legal fees or liens." I clenched my jaw, thinking of that forged signature Evelyn mentioned. "How do you know all this?" Lila hesitated, then pulled a flash drive from her backpack. "I've got emails, permits, bank record stuff I shouldn't have. A whistleblower from the county slipped me most of it before they vanished. Quit their job, left town. Scared. Scared of what?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. "These people don't play nice, Jake. They've ruined lives. One rancher in Montana fought them and ended up bankrupt. Another," she trailed off, her eyes darkening. "Let's just say he didn't walk away." I took the flash drive, its weight heavier than it should have been. "Why me? Why now?" "Your land's prime," she said. "Close to the highway, water rights, views. They're planning a luxury community mansions, golf course, the works. Your ranch is the cornerstone. Without it, their project's dead in the water." I laughed, a bitter sound. "So I'm supposed to roll over and let them take it?" Lila leaned forward. "No. You fight. But smart. I can publish what I've got, expose them. You get a lawyer, hit them with everything. We move fast, before they tighten the screws." I nodded, but doubt gnawed at me. Lawyers cost money I didn't have, and exposing a syndicate sounded like a good way to end up like that Montana rancher or worse. Still, Lila's fire was contagious. For the first time in days, I felt like I wasn't alone. The next morning, I called a lawyer in Cheyenne, a grizzled guy named Dan Carver who'd helped Grandpa once with a boundary dispute. He agreed to take my case, but warned me it'd be a slog. "These HOA types are vipers," he said over the phone. "But if they forge your signature, we've got a shot. Send me everything you've got." I mailed him the county documents and Lila's flash drive, keeping copies for myself. Then I drove to Rusty's saloon, hoping to rally some locals. If Karen Hills was as dirty as Lila said, maybe others had gotten those letters too. The bar was half full, the air thick with cigarette smoke and laughter. I stood on a chair, waving for quiet. "Folks," I called. "Anyone heard of Karen Hills HOA? They're claiming my land, saying I owe him $250,000. Built an office on my property without a word. I need to know if they've hit you too." The room went silent, then erupted in murmurs. Old man Tucker stood, his face red. "Got a letter last week. Said I owe $80,000 for my farm. Thought it was a scam." A woman at the bar, Jenny from the feed store, raised her hand. "Me too, $120,000. They said my land's part of their community." I ignored it, but now they're threatening a lien. One by one, others chimed in. 6 people, all with similar stories. Letters, demands, threats, all targeting land near mine. Lila was right, this wasn't just about me. It was a land grab, and we were all in their crosshairs. That night, Lila and I met at my ranch to strategize. She drafted an article for her paper, a small independent outlet, laying out the syndicate scheme. "It'll hit stands tomorrow," she said, her laptop glowing in the dim kitchen. "Once it's out, they'll know we're coming. You ready for that?" I wasn't, but I nodded. "What about your whistleblower? Can they back us up?" She shook her head. "They're gone, but their evidence is solid. We've got enough to make noise." The article dropped the next day, and hell broke loose. My phone rang off the hook: reporters, neighbors, even a state senator's aide. Social media buzzed with Karen Hill's scam, fueled by Lila's story. For a moment, it felt like we were winning. Then the retaliation started. First, my truck's tires were slashed. Then my mailbox was stuffed with anonymous threats, cut out letters like some bad movie. "Pay or burn," one read. I showed them to Lila, who didn't blink. "They're rattled," she said. "Keep going." Dan called with worse news. "The HOA's countersuing," he said, "claiming you're slandering their legitimate business. They've got high-powered lawyers, Jake. We need hard proof that signatures forged." I sent him the contract Evelyn had seen, along with samples of my real signature. Meanwhile, Lila dug deeper, chasing leads on the syndicate's investors. One name kept popping up: Victor Slade, a Denver real estate mogul with a rap sheet of shady deals. If we could tie him to Karen Hill's, we might crack the whole thing open. Then came the twist I never saw coming. Late one night, as I sat with Lila going over documents, there was a knock at my door. I opened it to find Cynthia, the HOA president, standing on my porch. No smile this time, just a pale face and trembling hands. "I need to talk," she whispered. "Not here. Somewhere safe." Against my better judgment, I drove her to a diner 20 miles away, Lila in the back seat, recording on her phone. Cynthia looked like she hadn't slept in days. "I didn't know how deep this went," she said, her voice breaking. "I thought it was just an HOA gig, pushy, sure, but legal. Then I saw the books. Millions moving through shell companies. Threats to keep us quiet. I'm in over my head, Jake." "Why come to me?" I asked, skeptical. "Because you're fighting," she said. "And because I signed some of those permits. They told me you'd agreed." I didn't know it was a lie until Lila's article. Lila leaned forward. "Who's they?" "Tommy. Slade." Cynthia nodded, tears streaking her mascara. "Tommy reports to Slade. They've got people in the county, the state. They'll destroy you if you don't back off. They'll destroy me if they know I'm here." I wanted to hate her, but I saw fear in her eyes, real fear. "Help us," I said. "Testify. Give us what you know." She hesitated, then slid a USB drive across the table. "Emails, contracts, payments. It's all there. But you didn't get it from me." Cynthia left, vanishing into the night. Lila and I pored over the files, and it was damning. Slade's name was everywhere, linked to bribes, forged deeds, even a county official who'd retired with a fat bank account. We had enough to take to the feds. The next day, I met Dan at his office with the new evidence. He whistled low. "This is dynamite, Jake. But it's dangerous. These guys don't lose quietly." He was right. That night, my barn went up in flames. I watched it burn, the fire lighting up the sky, my cattle panicking in the corral. The sheriff called it arson, but had no leads. I knew who did it, but proof was another story. Lila's paper ran a follow-up, naming Slade and linking him to the fire. Protests erupted outside the Karen Hill's office, locals chanting for justice. The feds took notice, launching an investigation. For a moment, I thought we'd won. Then Tommy showed up at my ranch, alone, his suit rumpled, his grin gone. "You're killing me, Jake," he said, his voice raw. "This was supposed to be easy. You sell, I cash out, we both move on." "You forged my signature," I said, my fists clenched. "You burned my barn. You think I'm moving on?" He shook his head. "I didn't burn anything. That was Slade's crew. I'm just the middleman, man. I never wanted this." "Bullshit," I spat. "You sold me out." He looked at me, and for a second, I saw the old Tommy, the kid who dreamed with me. "I'm sorry," he said, "but it's too late. Slade's coming for you. Walk away, Jake. Please." He left, and I stood there, the weight of his words crushing me. The feds raided Karen Hill's the next week, arresting Cynthia, Tommy, and a dozen others. Slade slipped away, his lawyers shielding him. My ranch was safe, the liens lifted, the rezoning reversed. But the victory felt hollow. The barn was gone. My savings were drained from legal fees. And Tommy, friend, My betrayer was facing years in prison. I visited him once, through a glass partition. He wouldn't meet my eyes. I thought I could have it all, he said. I was wrong. I walked away, the ranch still mine but scarred. The land would heal, but I wasn't sure I would. Lila's articles won awards, but she moved on to another story, another fight. I stayed, tending cattle, rebuilding, alone with my ghosts. In the end, I kept my home, but lost something deeper: trust, friendship, the belief that hard work could outrun greed. The sun still sets over Sagebrush Ranch, but it doesn't feel like mine anymore. It's just dirt, blood, and a fight I barely survived. What do you think? Was I right to fight, or should I have walked away? Was Tommy a villain, or just another victim of a system built to break us? Share your thoughts. I am listening.